Sad news out of England. Last Friday, famed animator Richard Williams passed away. Perhaps he's best well known as the director of animation on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but he also has his magnum opus, The Thief and the Cobbler, which unfortunately was never completely finished in his lifetime. And besides that, he won a couple of Academy Awards for the visual effects and the Special Achievement Oscar for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but also had one for a previous project he did, an adaptation of A Christmas Carol in the 1970s. So it's a big loss to lose someone so great in the field of animation. He was 86 and did pass away from cancer. The nice thing is that he was working up until the end. His daughter reported to a UK news agency that he was writing and animating at his work desk up to 6 p.m. the day that he passed away. So that's kind of nice.
That's dedication,
Yeah.
That's for sure. He definitely was doing what he loved if he knew that he had limited time left. I think that, as a child, that Who Framed Roger Rabbit was maybe a little bit old for me when it came out. I still got to see it, and I just remember how amazing it was to have both worlds in one movie. You've got the animated characters and you've got the real life people, which I guess I only saw a glimpse of that for Mary Poppins when they had the little penguins. But this truly made it seem like a world of animated characters living in a world of people.
Yeah, and they talked about the difficulty, in behind-the-scenes featurettes at the time, the difficulty of getting the animation and the real-life characters to interact. I mean, we kind of take it for granted now because most big movies have, CGI characters just in there with the normal actors. But at the time, they talked about the difficulty of things like, say, the weasel characters, splashing water and then getting the actual water to splash at the same time.
Yeah, and also the scene where there's a lamp that's swinging and getting the shadows to hit the characters right at the same time that it's hitting the rest of the background right. I mean, really, they put a lot of effort into making that perfect.
And, what's interesting is with Richard Williams, he didn't jump at the chance to work on Roger Rabbit immediately because he knew he would have to put his life's work on hold, which again, like I mentioned, was that feature film, The Thief and the Cobbler, which he had been working on basically on his own for decades and was only able to animate about 20 minutes up until 1988 or so. And then after Roger Rabbit was a success, he was able to get a deal with Warner Brothers, which seemed like, okay, this is going to be great. But 1992 rolls around, they have everything except for the last 15 to 20 minutes of that film done. And they start to get, an itchy trigger finger. They're like, we really want to put this out. And at the time, they also knew what was coming out around the same time. Disney had chosen the same day as the proposed release date for The Thief and the Cobbler to release, dun dun dun, Aladdin.
What?
So, that's kind of rude considering that they had worked with him on Roger Rabbit and they probably knew it. Everyone in Hollywood knew that he was working on this magnum opus, but they're like, we're going to do our own version of the 1001 Arabian Nights. And so Warner Brothers took it away from Richard Williams and got Korean animators to finish it up, and they released it internationally in 93. They didn't even release it in America. Miramax got it a couple years later and released it as Arabian Nights in 1995 in America. But I think it bombed, and at the time, I saw trailers and I saw commercials, and I thought, oh, that's a ripoff of Aladdin. And probably a lot of people falsely assumed that when it was coming out. Aladdin had already come out, which was good, but they see another sort of Scheherazade Arabian Nights tale, and they think, well, I've seen this. This has been done.
Man, Disney is brutal. They're so savage.
Absolutely. Sometimes they play nice. Sometimes they share. An example of that is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I saw it really young, so it was an amazing film at the time. It seemed like the cartoons were real life. But even at the time, I knew it was weird for Donald Duck and Daffy Duck to be sharing a stage together. I knew that just wasn't done. I had seen enough cartoons starring both of them to realize that it was unusual if not outright forbidden, for them or say Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse to be parachuting at the same time. And I mean, you knew that too, right? When you were watching it, like these characters don't interact.
I didn't really think of it like that because it just seemed like that's the world that they all live in.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really put that together.
Another thing Richard Williams did, he was the voice of Droopy Dog in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit movie.
Do you have your best Droopy Dog?
Your floor, sir.
Good job.
So I don't think he was the original voice of Droopy Dog, but he did play him in the movie in at least one of the Roger Rabbit cartoon shorts, which are good, but those were direct. I want to be clear, set the record straight. Those didn't have a lot to do with Richard Williams. I think Dan Minkoff directed the Roger Rabbit shorts that were attached to, like, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and there was another movie I forget, but Roger Rabbit as a character also originally from a book called Who Censored Roger Rabbit, written by Gary K. Wolfe in 1981. So whoever it was, Touchstone, Disney, bought the rights for this and loosely based the movie on that, although I never read it. I've been planning on reading this book for the better part of my life now, but I've never gotten around to it. I haven't heard really fantastic things about it, but I know that the movie, became a lot more family focused. I think the book probably is a little more adult cartoon humor, a little closer to something like, Ralph Bakshi, who, after Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, they tried with Ralph Bakshi to do the same sort of thing of a real life animated mixture. Cool World, which I didn't see at the time, and when I eventually saw it, I thought, well, interesting.
I didn't like it.
Did you see it when it came out?
I'm not sure.
Some fun stuff about Roger Rabbit. The actor who portrayed him, Charles Fleischer, the voice of Roger Rabbit, insisted that they give him a Roger Rabbit costume so that he could act out on set and interact with, like, Bob Hoskins.
Oh, I love that. So if people want to learn more about Roger Rabbit and the process involved, what other books can they look at?
Well, Richard Williams has a book that he wrote himself called, another one that I've been intending to read for decades now, but I haven't. It's called The Animator's Survival Kit. And it's basically for anyone who's going to do any sort of art, even if it's not animation, even if it's like just sequential art or illustration, static images. It's, as I understand it, like kind of a holy grail or Bible for animators, really useful. And that's another thing, as we celebrate Richard Williams' life, another thing that's great about him is that he spent a lot of his life trying to make sure that classical animation techniques and styles wouldn't just disappear forever. He educated a lot of young animators whenever he had the chance. And if you want more Roger Rabbit books too, the original author Gary K. Wolfe wrote a couple more. After the movie came out, he wrote a second book called Who Plugged Roger Rabbit. And then in 2013, that was like 91, and then in 2013 he wrote a third one called Who Whacked Roger Rabbit. So I've never read any of them, but just going on the titles, Who Plugged, Who Censored, Who Whacked, it seems like Roger Rabbit just gets killed in every single one of these books. Like, it's always like a weird murder mystery. But I also understand that they didn't necessarily take place in the same universe. Like, after the movie came out, he matched the characters in the second book to be much more like the characters as they appear in the movies.
And here we have your art. It looks like your pencils are done and you're starting to color to put ink to it. Tell us about this. Did you have like a visual reference that you used, or was this by memory?
Yeah, I don't know who to credit here because this is like official Disney licensed artwork, but I don't know. So another thing I'm not sure about is, did Richard Williams initially design the Roger Rabbit character? My guess would be yes, but I don't know if it was someone else at Disney in-house or maybe even Warner Brothers. I can't say for sure. And I also, when they put out the like official merchandise artwork or like a t-shirt with Mickey Mouse or something on it, you can never be 100% sure who's doing the art unless it's like, we've been to Disneyland and sometimes...
Who penned Roger Rabbit?
Yes, that's it.
We don't know.
But at Disneyland, you go to some of the gift shops and sometimes they'll have like artist signature series. Like I know, the comic book artist J. Scott Campbell had like a whole a series of lithographs of Disney princesses, and those were signed by him, and it's very clearly his art. But this is Disney style.
When we went to Disneyland, we got to do an animated studio where we learned to draw.
Yeah.
Remember? What did we learn to draw?
They gave us the crash course in drawing Winnie the Pooh at the time, which was fun. That's Disneyland is a good time if you can go when it's not incredibly crowded. If you can get the celebrity pass, I imagine that's great. I don't know how they do it because you see pictures of like Joe Rogan or Gal Gadot going to Disneyland, and it's like they make it like an empty park for them or something.
I'm sure they block off like whatever area they're going to, and then they use like the back roads that only the employees use.
Yeah, but that's once we get to 10 million plus subscribers.
Yeah, get us that VIP pass, people. Tell your friends to subscribe.
But that's what I'm drawing today. It's just a simple pencil and Copic marker and ink illustration. It made me think, going back to the relationship between Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit, this is kind of an interesting trope as I see it in cartoons and comics, where like the husband will be a goofy animal cartoon character and the wife or the girlfriend will be sexy human lady. Which we've also seen. Another good example of this is in comics like Cerebus, who's an aardvark, and his girlfriend Jaka and his first wife Red Sophia. And then also in comics, University Squared featured, this is by Frank Cho, who we met at a comic convention last year. Frank Cho draws Brandy the human character, and then I forget the name of the male duck character who was in love with Brandy. But that's, I always think, an interesting trope of having, the guy be a funny animal and the girl be a sexy lady. Any thoughts on why that might be?
I mean, it kind of even goes to like real life shows where the guy is kind of just like comic relief and the girl is like a sexy character.
Right.
Even Married with Children, Al was definitely punching up for that one.
Right. Well, we should also mention, with Jessica Rabbit, the reason, ultimately, the story reason that she's a sexy lady is it's a punchline in the film. Right. It's like Eddie Valiant is being told, you got to go talk to the rabbit's wife. He's like, okay, I got to talk to Mrs. Rabbit. She's a rabbit. And then he goes to the nightclub and she's singing, and it's her reveal, when she starts singing, "Get Out of Here." And her reveal is like, well, boom. And it's like Betty Boop she's like, I can't compete. They're all in color now. She's one more cartoon character that confused young boys at the time.
So is she
and
bad,
warped them for life.
Or is she just drawn that way?
I believe her. She says she's just drawn that way. I believe her.
Okay. Well, I don't. She definitely was not innocent in that story. She definitely worked some angles to try to do what was best for her.
Right. Well, I do think she was looking out for her honey bunny.
Yeah.
So we could say that. All right. So we talked a lot about Roger Rabbit today, but I do want to tie it back in at the end here to mention again that we're really going to miss Richard Williams. He was, even if you didn't know the name, thanks to things like Roger Rabbit. And also, he did the title animation for a couple Pink Panther films back in the day. So even if you didn't know who he was, he probably had a positive effect on your life and your childhood, and gave you a lot of great cartoons and animation tips.
And as I'm seeing this drawing unfold, I really, really like it.
Oh, thank you.
And
thank you.
So if other people really, really like it, you should click that like button and tell us why you like this in the comments below. And if you want to get updates from us and find out when we've got more content available, what can they do?
You can tap the bell for additional notifications, and also subscribe to the channel and tell all your friends about it too. And if you're an artist yourself, you got to keep drawing. If you ever want to become as good as Richard Williams, even if you never end up finishing your masterpiece, you got to keep drawing every day. So until next time, everyone, keep drawing.